week's episode of One Piece, Cyborg Franky and Senor Pink's hard-boiled battle finally comes to an end, and the manly Karros goes blade to blade with the demented Diamante. Diamante's got some iron balls, and that's not a joke. He literally has a giant collection of spiked iron balls, which he uses as a devastating rain attack while he's trying to destroy Kyros, Nico Robin, and Rebecca in this week's absolutely ridiculous but very nice looking episode of One Piece. All that stuff with Karros is more at the end of the episode. The first half is all about the conclusion of Franky and Senor Pink's battle, and I think it was handled really, really well, especially the overall defeat of Senor Pink. Before we actually get to that, we see a few more flashbacks of him hanging out with his wife, trying to make her smile, and he goes full baby mode in this week's episode. Bonnet, pacifier, shirt, and the man diaper. What I really love about this scene, and what makes it surprisingly heartwarming, is that Senor Pink completely ditches his super stylistic gangster motif and opts to look like a ridiculous giant baby man just so that he can see his wife smile. The lengths that he goes to are so insane that he doesn't even care that anyone is laughing at him or thinks that he's really weird. Even the members of the Don Quixote crime family, which are all pretty disproportionate and weird-looking sons of bitches, are actually thinking that he still looks pretty goofy. It's very strange, but it actually adds this really interesting layer and depth to the character of Senor Pink, and you actually care about the character when he is defeated by Franky. And Franky, when he finishes him off, is so fucking badass. When he walks up to him, and he's all like, "Look, next time we meet, let's have a drink, tell me about your wife." It's just so freaking perfect. That combined with the music and the atmosphere just really got me hyped to see that, especially when he got all of the Tontada tribe all fired up as they get ready to go into the factory and start messing stuff up. Overall, I'd have to say that this is one of my favorite Franky battles from the entire series. I'm not sure if it's my favorite, but I think they did this one justice, especially the way they ended it all. Just really satisfying. Now, right after that, we move on to Karros versus Diamante, which is still mostly just more of the same, of Diamante just being a complete and total dickhead, making the ground constantly move so that Karros can't attack him. But he brings out this brand new move where he throws all of these weird-looking, like, stars into the air. They look like they're made of paper, but they're actually these little spiked balls, which are really heavy and continue to rain down on everyone. Now, this is cool because, at first, Karros just starts knocking them all away with his sword, which, honestly, could have looked a little better animated, in my opinion. Despite that, it was still a really cool moment. And we also had Nico Robin, who actually used her Devil Fruit abilities to grab all of these sunflowers and create this giant umbrella. It looked really awesome and very beautiful, and it looked like it jumped right off the manga pages. It had a lot of detail behind it, and I thought that was awesome. I was kind of hoping that maybe Nico Robin would do something a little crazier, but still, it's really great. And this is basically going to be Karros' moment, because that's finally when he decides to just go into Berserker mode and starts charging against Diamante when he ends this week's episode. But before he does that, he wants to let Rebecca know that he doesn't want her to fight in the battle. He doesn't want her to use a sword anymore, and that's the reason he taught her to fight the way he did, because he never wanted her to hurt anyone. That's the way the episode ends. Next week, we're going to see the end of their battle, and it's going to be pretty freaking awesome if the preview is any indication. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of One Piece? A very simple episode, but a very satisfying episode. I really enjoyed it. In many retrospects, they probably could have finished the whole Franky Senor Pink story last week if they, sped things up just a little bit more. But still, I really liked the way they concluded it in this episode, especially when Senor Pink was defeated and Franky actually wiped away his tears. There was something very epic about that, and I just can't put my finger on it. It just really got me invested in their battle all that much more, and makes me wish that it actually wasn't over quite yet, because I still would have liked to see a little bit more from these characters. But c'est la vie, that's the way it is in the manga version, so they still did it justice. Everything with Kyros and Diamante is great. This is one of the battles that I really loved in the manga version, and I love it because it involves a side character who's, like, so different than the other characters that we see in the series. Like, he just doesn't have anything, like, really special about him in terms of, like, his powers. He's just this really badass warrior, and it's so fitting, and I never even really thought about this, that it's, like, the two champions of Kurita Coliseum who are fighting against each other. Something about that is really awesome to me. Of course, Diamante sort of stole that away from him, but still, it's really great, and it's very fitting for the battle. The overall look of the battlefield is something that I've talked about a lot, the whole sunflower field, the way that the ground is moving, and I especially love the way that the flower petals were actually flying up in the air in this episode. It just made everything seem really majestic and beautiful, and again makes this one of the more distinctive battlefields that I've seen from the One Piece series. I think it's really awesome. Karros himself, he's just so infectiously manly and awesome too. Like, you definitely want to get behind that character a lot, and you really like him. And Diamante is so just evil and messed up and sociopathic, and you want to see him defeated. So it's really just the perfect light versus dark story, and I cannot wait to see the conclusion of it in the next episode. And we still have a few more battles to go in Dressrosa arc before we get to the main event. So I really cannot wait to see what they're going to do with them. But this episode right here, in terms of the technical side of things, animation, artwork, it looked pretty good this week. There wasn't any scene that was like too insanely crazy, but everything looked really impactful and nice, especially during the Diamante battle. Everything looked really cool there. The only thing that could have maybe been improved was the scene where Karros was deflecting all of the iron balls. It just looked a little choppy to me, but honestly, everything else looked really good. I still think this was a really classic, entertaining episode of One Piece. It's one of those big battle episodes in an arc that I'm always going to remember and have images of it in my mind forever, just burned there because of how iconic they really are. So I like this one. It could have been maybe a little bit better in some areas, and maybe they could have sped things up a bit. But still, I think it was a really solid episode of One Piece. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, One Piece fans. If you're reading the manga or you're watching the anime, check this one out. It's pretty freaking awesome. But before you guys leave, I would love to hear your thoughts on this week's episode of One Piece. Did you have an opportunity to watch it? What did you think about the battle between Franky and Senor Pink? Would you like to see the return of the big man baby at some point in the future? And what did you think of the battle between Kyros and Diamante? And what do you want to see from the rest of the One Piece anime series? Please tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching this review. Make sure to like it and share it with all of your friends. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. That way you'll see all of our latest anime and manga reviews, my Star Wars videos, movie reviews, and even our weekly podcast show. Check it out. It's all there. Share it with your buds. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!